Greetings, friends. Prepare for another thrilling journey as we delve into Reddit's most bizarre tales. We're plunging deep into the quirkiest corners of the web. Grab your popcorn and join us on this adventure. Remember to hit subscribe and like. Let's begin. Even if it will stir up some bad feelings inside, I must do it to release some of the venom I feel inside. Bear with me in the way I write, considering English is not my first language. I am almost 40 and my ex-wife is 39. She became my ex-wife exactly 6 months ago. In the middle of November last year, she sat me down and told me she had fallen out of love. That she wanted a divorce. That she still loves me but is not in love with me. After 18 years of being together and 11 married. She was serious. My wife and I met 18 years ago during college. We graduated together and dated for 7 years until 2012. We began our life together, getting jobs, working, and spending time together. She even waited for me when I went away for 2 years to begin police training. At graduation, I received a post somewhere in a rural area, far away from our city. That meant that I could only come home at the end of the week. 2 years later, I asked her to marry me. I was clumsy and emotional. I wanted to do a big and romantic gesture but ruined it. Still, she said yes, and she made me the happiest man. We moved together into a small apartment until the wedding with the intention of buying a bigger place afterward. But life has a knack for hitting you when you least expect it. We lived in that small apartment for more than a year until we had to move in with her parents. We stayed with my in-laws until 2015 when my daughter was born. A beautiful child with blue eyes and a head of red hair, unlike her mother and me. I know in my very bones she is my daughter. I wouldn't accept anything else. We moved to our own apartment in 2016. It was a rushed job. My wife was tired of living with her parents and wanted her own life. I wanted it too, but was just being cautious. It hurt a little when she made the down payment without consulting me about the apartment she found, but I was at my station and couldn't see it, and she paid out of fear of losing it. Either way, it didn't bother me that much. As long as she was happy and liked the apartment, I could make anything out of it to be a home. Our home. But that meant money, and at the time, we were out of financial resources. To renovate the apartment meant financial sacrifices and long hours of work. For a few years, some rooms were just storage, to store things. Then slowly, things began to move. Time passed, I got paid better, I closed some loans and renovated another room, and made different improvements in the house. Working in 8-hour shifts helped me be next to my family, even if I commuted 3 hours to my post every day. Sometimes we argued, not big fights but heated discussions. I was always asking her to be more affectionate towards me. I wanted a sign that she loves and appreciates me. She always replied that that's her way of being. She loves me and has feelings for me, but it is hard for her to show them. We were both introverts. Over time, I became more of a people person. I came out of my shell, and I like to think that I helped her do that too. To a certain degree, because she was still more of a quiet type, but could very easily socialize when she felt comfortable. Sometimes during our arguments, she would end them by asking for a divorce. I always thought she did that to hurt me, but now I see that it was always in her heart. You know, now that I think back, I don't remember her ever telling me she loved me out of the blue. She always said it after I said it to her, but never of her own free will, or that she appreciated what I did. In the summer of 2022, I moved posts after passing an interview. I came home to a leadership position with better pay. Also, my shifts changed to 12/24 to 12/48, which meant a lot of spare time to be with my family. I did chores in the house like any other husband would do. I took my daughter to the park, fed her, dressed her, put her to bed, and did groceries. Because my salary was much higher than hers, I took on all the financial responsibilities and left the household expenditures to her. It was working. We were a team. Although sometimes from month to month I would struggle financially, I kept it to myself. Sometimes the fear of not being able to cover our mortgage was so overwhelming that I felt like I was breathing fire. That is why when she found a new job with a little pay raise, we consulted and decided to go for it. Even if it was just for a year, it was good to build more diverse experience in the work field. It was a company from the US with a branch in our country and some offices in our hometown. I told her I supported whatever decision she made, and even if after that year she wouldn't have that job anymore, we would struggle a bit but would make it from my salary. Another good side was that she would work a lot from home. In the beginning, I saw her struggle. I guess there were a lot of new terms and terminology and new information she needed to absorb. So, I tried to help the best way I could by giving her time and freedom. After a night shift, 12 hours on patrol, I would come home early in the morning, drink lots of coffee, and take our daughter to school. I stayed awake because in a few hours I had to pick her up from school. Then I would bring her home, change her clothes, feed her, take her to the park, and put her to rest for a few hours. Sometimes I prepared dinner and washed dishes, even if putting them in the dishwasher doesn't qualify as a grand effort. I did laundry when she was overwhelmed. As I said, we were a team. She worked during the night, I worked during the day. I worked during the week, she worked on weekends when I was off. When our schedules coincided and we had a free weekend, we tried to do something nice. I would always let her pick what she would like to do because I wanted it to be relaxing for her. But it's hard with an 8-year-old daughter who only wants to go to parks and meet with her classmates or friends. But we did things together as a family. Even when we went on vacation, I would let her pick the place, whether the mountains or the seaside, and I was always scolded for not choosing the place to go or not organizing things. In the middle of 2023, something shifted inside her. I don't know what. At that time, I didn't feel it. I always thought it was stress from her new job. I was walking on eggshells around her, and she became more distant than her usual self. Also, because my shifts sometimes started early in the morning, way early, I moved into another room and let my wife and daughter sleep in the master bedroom. Apparently, I snore and she has a light sleep. But I didn't mind, although my daughter always asked me to sleep next to her because she doesn't mind that I snore. Our partnership became more like a roommate situation. I would work, pay bills, and give my wife free time by staying with our daughter and taking care of our home. Don't get me wrong. She did a lot around the house and cooked, maybe even more than I did, but she would also often choose to spend time alone instead of being with us. Back then, I understood that she needed her time and freedom, and I never restricted that. If she needed a girls' night out, I would switch my shift and stay home. For the company Christmas party, I had a wonderful doll party with my daughter. But I missed her. She asked why I didn't go out with my friends as compensation. But I didn't want that. I wanted time and attention from her. She never understood that. She said I was too clingy. Sometimes when I woke up early in the morning, I would set my alarm 10 minutes earlier than usual just to sneak into bed next to her and our daughter and hold them. Over time, all my signs of affection became a nuisance to her, I guess. She never showed otherwise. I guess a lot of it is my fault. I couldn't see the forest for the trees. It's a saying in my language. I was caught up in building us a home and stability that I forgot to appreciate her. I forgot to bring her flowers, make unexpected gifts, and the ones I did make weren't the best. Take her on vacations or be spontaneous. And she stopped investing in me. Stop fighting for me. Or maybe that happened long before. I didn't know anymore. I saw her drifting away from our family. My daughter and I would go to the park, and she would choose to go for random walks or bike rides. And I was okay with that. I hoped that it made her happy, helped her decompress after a long week of work. So in November, she told me she wanted a divorce, because we had become roommates and she had no feelings for me. She shattered my heart into little pieces. I knew her, and I knew this time was serious, not just to hurt me. She said she had felt this way for a few years, but didn't know how to end things. She believed we would be happier apart than together. Anything I said, she would turn into a reason to break up, to divorce. For a week, I tried to change her mind. I tried to talk to her, to reason with her. I suggested going to counseling together. Nothing worked. She was adamant. I told her I would fight to win her heart back, to be the man she fell in love with. I ignored my friends and family who suggested it was about someone else. I couldn't believe and accept that the person I dedicated my life to, with whom I wanted to grow old, could be such a person. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, and I cried. I lost more than 8 kilograms, almost 18 pounds during that week, and I was already a skinny guy even in my 40s. So after a week of seeing her sleep at night without any remorse and with tranquility, I told her I was still set on winning her back but couldn't do that if she allowed someone else into her heart. And that's when she came clean. It was a coworker, older than her, she said, who has kids of his own. It was an emotional affair for 2 months before it became physical. That made her decide to leave our family. That night, I stayed awake and made a profile of what kind of guy he could be. I used all my knowledge gathered during 14 years in the police force. In the morning, I gave it to her, and after reading it, she laughed it off. I know now I should have used her confusion to throw her out of our house. She even offered to leave, and during an argument later, she retracted and said she would have taken our daughter with her. But at that time, I decided to leave. It was best for my daughter to make the transition easier. On December 1, 2023, I left home. That morning, I took her phone while she was in the bathroom and unlocked it because my daughter had shown me the pattern to unlock it the night before. I found her messages with this guy. I took some photos of them. I couldn't see clearly and was shaking uncontrollably, so some came out blurry. They hadn't just had an affair, they were practically living together. When she said she was going to her office, even after one of my night shifts, she was actually going to see him. Working remotely allowed her to do her work from his place and deceive me. I was surprised she could be so attentive to this guy, showing him affection, while she couldn't be bothered to give me a second thought. I mean, she could send in early morning messages with kissing emojis, but couldn't bother to send me a single message during an entire shift. Not even one message. I was in a very dark place. I was dangerously thin. I scared my mother-in-law, and she thought I was ill. I couldn't bear to tell her what her daughter had done. But I left. I took refuge at my parents' house. It was the worst Christmas and New Year's Eve. It was the beginning of a nightmare. I visited my daughter every day or every other day in my own apartment, while still paying the mortgage. During that time, my daughter told me about Mommy's coworker who visited them in the park and played with her. And I was filled with rage. Literally, it felt like every breath was filled with venom. So I did a simple background check on this guy as much as I was allowed without breaking the law. 8 years older than her, he had been married twice, and during his second marriage, he had a child, a daughter born the same year as mine, 2015, but with a third woman. 3 years after divorcing, he had 2 more children with this third woman, but without marrying her. He left her when his youngest child was 1 year old. His Facebook page is empty, just a picture of a snail and a sunset and a message during the period I guessed he left his family. I didn't know how to search for him on other online sites, apps, and stuff like that, but I found his LinkedIn profile. So we decided to get divorced. I don't think there was ever a chance of reconciliation. During my visits, we argued. Lots of gaslighting. She said she is the number one person in her life, that she has the right to live her life as she pleases, that her affair was a mistake, even though it continues, but it opened her eyes that she was unhappy in our marriage, that kids grow up and move on with their respective lives. I know she was unhappy. Maybe I was too. She stopped investing her time and feelings in me a long time ago. A lot of rewriting of history, but maybe with some truths behind it. I asked her why she didn't fight for our marriage if she felt we were drifting apart. Why she didn't try to communicate with me about what she was feeling. That she felt neglected, alone, and unloved. She said she tried but didn't know how to put it into words. I understand the need for change at a certain point in life. To reinvent yourself. But that change must come from within yourself, not by changing everything around you while staying the same. I asked her why she chose to put me through such a painful, life-altering, and torturous experience if she wanted freedom, was tired of our family, and chose to have an affair that led to divorce. She replied that it just happened. Just happened. These things don't just happen. You allow them to happen. From the moment you decide to go out for coffee with that divorced, friendly, experienced coworker and choose not to tell your husband, that's when you start cheating. Because you accept the possible consequences, and that's why you don't tell your spouse. Because deep down, you know it's wrong. But forbidden things can be so tempting sometimes, right? I also understand that, in my line of work, there were younger, more attractive female colleagues who wanted my attention, maybe something more. I don't know. I always shut down any possibility of anything else. Every day, I chose my wife for who she was, not just her appearance. I chose her for what we had built together for our child and for the friendship we had over the years. I had so much love for her, but she always rejected me until I started to withdraw. Even when I was exhausted, if she wanted to go for a walk, I would load up our car with her bikes, check the tire pressure, oil the wheels, and pack water. It seemed like she had a problem with me not enjoying these outings, thinking I saw them as a burden. Even when I was dead tired, I cherished every moment we had together. I just had to push through my fatigue. I'm tired of all this writing, and it has stirred up my emotions. On February 9th of this year, we divorced, amicably. In my country, even if the reason for divorce is adultery, the law usually grants primary custody to the mother. After the child turns 10, they can choose to live with the other parent. We had joint custody, with her being the primary caregiver and me the visitor. We can agree on any visitation schedule, but if we can't, then the legal default is every other weekend for me. My heart is shattered into a million pieces, and I miss my daughter so much. I miss my wife too, but the person she is now is unfamiliar to me. She's changed completely. She's like a stranger now. It breaks my soul to leave my daughter with someone who has shown such low morality, such weak values as a spouse and as a human being. During our divorce, I gave her the opportunity to tell her parents the truth. She gave them partial truths, not the whole truth. So I went to see them. I told them. I had to visit them multiple times to make them see the truth. They still believed it was my fault, until they confronted her and she admitted it. But they never had enough influence to make her act against her nature or will. My now ex-father-in-law told me he feels like he's lost his brother all over again. It breaks my heart even more to see their sorrow because I really love them, but she's their daughter, and they will always side with her. After the divorce in February, it took another 2 months for her to find a small apartment to rent. During this time and until my daughter turns 18, I must pay support. After she moved out, I worked during my free time to get the old apartment ready to sell. My father, who is almost 70 years old, helped me. She said she would assist, but couldn't do it during the week because of work. Yet she could leave our daughter with her parents overnight to go on dates with her new partner. One of the hardest things for me to accept is that she spends weekends with her new partner and our daughter. How could she be so heartless to do that to her own daughter? He also brings his 3 kids to his place, for whom he also pays support, especially his daughter. His children live with their mother, not with him. I don't know how that works legally, as they all reside at his address. He brings his daughter to his place so that my daughter has someone to play and sleep with while he sleeps with her mother, my ex-wife. My daughter always slept with her mother. My ex-wife has never slept in a separate bed from our daughter. How does she explain that to her daughter? This infuriates me beyond words, as does the constant reminder of her messages. I've tried to avoid meeting him. I fear that if he mocks me, I might lose control and react violently. I'm not ready for that. He isn't taller than me, he has a bit of weight, and he started to lose his hair. He isn't wealthier than me. What those women saw in him, I'll never understand. She didn't even have the decency to tell me the whole truth. This wasn't just a brief affair. She had been working at that company for 8 months by then. Their affair must have been going on for at least 6 months. Once she suggested we remain friends and co-parent. How can you co-parent with someone who hurt you so deeply, who betrayed you to the core? How can you communicate with such an awful person who has such low moral values? If it were up to me, I would forget her face, her name, and that she ever existed and caused me so much pain, but I can't. I have to stay in contact with her for the sake of our daughter. This will never allow me to heal. I've tried to discuss it with my daughter. But what can you say to a 9-year-old about something like this? I've asked my ex-wife to talk to her often, and she says our daughter is fine. But I suspect our daughter just tells her mom what she wants to hear, and she accepts that without digging deeper. I can see that our daughter is suffering. I can see she's trying to bury these feelings inside. Most of the time when I try to talk to her about it, she says she doesn't want to discuss it, just sit with me in silence. But now she clings to my parents when she visits. She clings to me. I message her every day on WhatsApp and see her once every 2 weeks. I've tried to see her more often, but it will be weeks or even months until I find my own place. What continues to bother me is realizing that every time I take my daughter, I give my ex-wife the chance to be with her new partner. That's why I now think it's better for my daughter to stay with me than to be at that guy's place. Just this week, she stayed a couple of nights at her grandparents' from her mom's side, while I suspect my ex-wife worked late nights. Even 6 months after the divorce, it still hurts as much as it did in the beginning. I consider getting counseling, but I might lose my job. Seeking help in my profession is almost like a death sentence. So I have to endure it, be strong, and overcome this pain on my own. I've learned to stay away from alcohol, even though I learned it the hard way. I hit the gym every other day. I've gained back the weight I lost and am aiming to gain a few more pounds, but it's tough for me. I seem to have a tough time gaining weight. I'm trying to quit smoking and travel more. After the divorce, I visited one of my sisters in the UK. A few months later, I visited my other sister in Barcelona. Soon, I'll spend a week at the mountainside with just my daughter. And in November, to mark the discovery of my ex-wife's cheating, I plan to visit Iceland. I really want to buy a motorcycle because I've always dreamed of having one. But when I was married with a child, it wasn't a financial priority. Now, raising that amount of money while paying alimony is difficult. So if anyone has any advice on how to earn a bit of extra money, I'd appreciate it. I just don't know anymore. Once I asked my daughter how she'd feel if I'd brought a lady friend with us to the mountain resort. She was so scared that tears welled up in her eyes. I assured her it would just be the two of us. She hugged me tightly, and tears filled my eyes too. I don't think I'm ready to date anyone. I feel inadequate. I know it's my self-esteem that has taken a hit.